Welcome to Elevating Athletes, Laurel Springs Insight Podcast, where we'll be running monthly talks on athletics, playing at the college level, and hot topics in college sports. My name is Michaela Anderson, and along with me today, I have my colleague, Katie Mann.
Hello, everybody. Welcome again to Elevating Athletes, Laurel Springs Insight Podcast. I'm excited to join you all along with Miss Anderson. My name is Katie Mann. I'm one of the college athletic counselors here. I played sports in college, and then I went on to work in collegiate athletics for multiple years before coming to Laurel Springs. And I'm super happy to be here and fill you guys in on all the insights.
And I am Michaela. I am your other college athletic counselor, and my background is also working at college athletics. I spent 10 years working at two Division I universities as an associate athletic director in academics and compliance. I also had the opportunity to play collegiate soccer as well during my time in college, and we are excited to get started with this today. Today, we also have some LSS faculty and staff who played at the college level in different sports. So let's welcome Heidi, Will, Tara, Jessica, and Dana. Thank you guys for joining us today. For this first podcast, we want to talk about the different options to playing at the collegiate level. And I'm just going to start this off with a somewhat controversial statement, but I believe that it's true that if you want to play collegiate sports, you can find a home. It just might not be your first thought of what your home will be. So when we think about playing on past the high school level, there's truly three different options. There's the NCAA, which is the most well-known option to go play out. There's NAIA, which comprises about 250 schools, similar school size to Division III schools, but we'll talk about that. And then there's also the National Junior College Athletic Association, also known as the NGCAA. All three of these allow you to go on and play your sport at the next level. And you will all be able to call yourself a collegiate athlete if you're able to play at any of these levels. For this particular episode, we're really going to be focusing on breaking down the NCAA. Most people know what a Division I school is. They're the biggest schools out there. They're playing for national championships. There's definitely a lot of national attention. You see them on TV. Most people are very familiar with those Division I schools. What people are sometimes less familiar with is the smaller Division I schools. And we're going to kind of break that down so you have a better understanding of what, Ohio State is versus Eastern Washington University. Both Division I programs, both our athletes are Division I, but the experience is going to be different inside of those. And then there's Division II and Division III as well. So when we talk about that Division I level, there's schools that are in conferences like the Missouri Valley, Big Sky, the Ivy Leagues, Patriot Leagues, and those are all smaller Division I schools that still give the students a Division I experience, but in different ways. Sometimes attending those smaller Division I schools where student population is closer to 12,000 might be better for some of our students than the schools that are 35 to 40,000. So that's one decision-making factor when you were thinking about where should we, be looking to play at. Does that matter to me? Does the population of school matter? The largest schools in Division I are going to be recruiting early. They have the pick of the crop. You'll see the top athletes go and commit there right away. The smaller Division I schools are a little slower on that. They're waiting for those larger Division Is to finish their recruiting cycle, and then they're going to hop on board. After that, Division II comes into play, and then Division III when we think about recruiting timelines. Some of the large universities will provide students with everything they could possibly need: meals, academic support, mental training, nutritional training, strength and conditioning, all the gear they could ever imagine, and they're competing at the highest possible level. Some of the smaller schools might have a few different resources or less resources, but they're still going to be Division I athletes at the end of the day. So we're going to talk a little bit more about Division II and Division III from Katie.
Thank you, Michaela, for all the good information on Division I college athletics and kind of breaking down, the different components within Division I at the different Division I levels. The next two divisional levels that we'll talk about within the NCAA are Division II and Division III. In terms of competition, these are the next two levels behind Division I, respectively. Division two and three can offer very unique experience for the student athletes who choose to attend these schools. Most often, your Division two and three are smaller in terms of student body, like Michaela said. They often have a student population of under 12,000, and even less under 4,000 to, be comparative. With the smaller population with their student body typically comes a smaller student to faculty ratio and smaller classroom sizes. That is one of the factors that student athletes may, use in terms of choosing a smaller school to attend. Many of these student athletes will also choose a smaller school within Division two and three based on the strengths of their academic programs. More personalized learning environments. Some of these higher ranking academic schools are oftentimes smaller Division two or three schools, specifically Division three. These schools that you think of like NYU or Carnegie Mellon. Student athletes at these schools often find that they have a very strong academic preference and they want a very strong academic support network, in broader terms. So not only from their coaches, but also from their teachers, their advisors, and even their peers. Another area that you may see, that differs from Division one in terms of regionality. Many Division two and specifically Division three often have a large regional focus within their conference, which means that this is reducing travel time for its student athletes. Much of their competitions and their tournament sites will often be within driving distance, as opposed to a larger scope within the Division one conferences, especially now, that they can operate. Another difference that you might see among the Division two and Division three versus Division one is time commitment. So, though you're still competing and operating at a competitive level, and you are dedicating a very large portion of your time to your sport at any level you choose to play, it is often more common for student athletes to have more time, off at the Division two or Division three level, versus Division one, even more so common at Division three versus Division two. And so this can mean more versus less time when it comes to extracurriculars, internships, and other campus organization. All of these factors, go into making your decision process and is something to consider for a lot of student athletes because this can be, huge factors when making their decisions, depending on how they envision their college experience to go in a holistic standpoint.
So now we're going to get into the meat of this podcast. So we're going to have our LSS faculty introduce themselves and kind of explain why they went where they went. And these will be personal stories that hopefully you guys can relate to as you're moving through this recruiting process. And we're going to start off with Heidi. Heidi, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and where you played and why you chose that school?
Sure. Thank you so much, Michaela and Katie, for having me. My name is Heidi McClure. I'm the Dean of Counseling here at Laurel Springs. And I attended Colorado College, which is a Division three school where I played volleyball. For me, the college search was much more about the academic side of things. I knew that I wasn't going to be a professional volleyball player. I was decent, but I was not that amazing. So I had been talking to some coaches, but really wanted to focus on kind of the academic strength of the school. So where I conducted my search for schools was really small private liberal arts colleges that had a strong volleyball program. As Michaela and Katie mentioned, for me, I wanted to be part of a competitive program. I didn't want to just kind of play at the club level or like the intramural level that some colleges have. I really kind of wanted to stay competitive. And so I, was able to find several schools and started during my junior year talking to a lot of the coaches at the different schools that kind of had the programs that I wanted, but also had really competitive volleyball teams. So they could come see me, when I was traveling and things like that. And then, kind of had conversations with several coaches about playing for them. And then ultimately, like because it's Division three, didn't have official visits, but was able to, during my visits to each of those schools, stay with girls on the team, get to like engage in their practices. So kind of, even though it's Division three, still because they have a competitive program, was able to make sure that it was a good fit with the team. Ultimately, because of the academics and also because I'm from Colorado originally. And so I just like Colorado, and I really liked the coach and the program at Colorado College. Ended up staying there where I played for 4 years. The other cool thing that I really liked about Colorado College the year that I went was they actually had a JV team in addition to their varsity team. And so I was able, like, I was a defensive specialist. So I started out playing on the varsity team as a defensive specialist, but they also wanted to grow my skills as a setter. So I started setting on the JV team as well to get additional experience. So I was like going, like playing a lot, which was great, especially as a freshman. But then I was able to transition to being a setter on the varsity team after my freshman year. So a good experience for me too, just in terms of athletic development. And I got an amazing education at a very unique school that happens to be on the block schedule, which is where you take one class at a time for 3.5 weeks. So for me, educationally, like that was where like I like to be super focused on things. And so for me, being able to like hone in on one subject for 3.5 weeks for like, I don't know, 16 hours a day was awesome. And also then we did a lot of our traveling like in those half weeks off. So I didn't have to miss a lot of class for sports. So that was cool too. So it's the best of both worlds for me. And I did a lot of talking. So back to you, Michaela.
I got one follow-up question for you. Do you think you could have made that decision to go to Colorado College if you didn't take official visits? Or like how important was the official visit experience
A
for
hundred
you?
percent important. So I think like for me, even though, like I said, they were unofficial because it's Division 3, so there's not like any scholarship money or anything like that. It was just more for them to see how I would interact with the team. There were a couple of situations where like because you did like overnight visits and you like slept on the floor in somebody's dorm room and like went to go to a practice and all of that stuff. And because I was able to see how the coach ran the practice, how they interacted with their players, how the players interacted with each other on the court and off the court, for me, that sealed the deal on several different things. Like I went to one college where had an amazing program, an amazing team, but like I just didn't click with them outside of athletics. And so for me, that was kind of important in that as well, and just seeing what kind of coach I wanted to be working under and what kind of environment I wanted to be living in. So super critical for the in-person piece for me.
Yeah, I think that you mentioned a lot of the big critical pieces that a lot of student athletes consider, location, major, academics, playing time, private versus public, family. All of that are really good, arguments to why you should consider a lot of different factors when making that decision. Um, so thank you, Heidi, for sharing that experience. Next, we want to bring in another one of our LSS staff members, Will, who is one of our college counselors. Will, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and where you played and your experience?
Hey guys, appreciate you having me. So yeah, went to Elon University my freshman year here in North Carolina. Again, it was close to home, and that was a big kind of selling point for me. It was also a smaller school. Like I think at the time it was around 6, 7,000 kids enrolled. Um, and for me initially, it was a really good mix of academic scholarship opportunities and the opportunity to walk on and play football. I was kind of, I guess, the dying breed now, right, of like the walk on in college athletics, where it was genuinely, I'm looking for the school and the academic piece. And then I may or may not have the opportunity to walk on there. Um, for me, I think looking back, I think some of the things that Heidi mentioned earlier that I wish I probably would have done a better job of is maybe looking at schools that, I guess, probably doing a little bit more research and trying to find like the true best fit for me in both academic and athletics. Um, for me, I'm from a really small town, so it's kind of that big fish, small pond thing. Like especially when I got to school, found out pretty quick that oh, these kids from like Texas and Georgia, they're really good at football, and maybe not so much where like I was from. So I think I could have done a better job of finding that best fit for me initially. And but I did enjoy my experience there. I did only stay for a year, and then I ended up transferring out again to try to like pursue the academic piece at a different institution. But for me, the year that I was there, overall, it was a good experience. So back to you guys.
I got a question for you, Will. You
Yeah.
you brought up being a walk-on.
Yep.
Kind of want to debunk a myth here. Do you feel like in your experience of being like you were preferred walk-on, you were asked to walk onto the team and join the roster, do you feel like you were treated any differently?
Yes. Yeah. Very differently. And not so much, you know, it wasn't necessarily like a favoritism thing or people like trying to be rude or anything like that, but their investment was, monetarily in other people. And that was okay. And I totally understood that. But yeah, so like if you, and this is not necessarily my experience, but talking to some of my buddies at the time, like there was a handful of us that were preferred walk-ons at different institutions. They would feel like they were doing a great job in practice and maybe not get those same opportunities to perform an actual competition as opposed to the kids that were on scholarship. So that was there was a little bit of a different experience for a walk-on versus scholarship kid for sure.
Thank you for sharing that. All right, we're gonna move over to Jessica. Jessica, can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your athletic experience?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Jessica Ramito. I'm a upper school science teacher, and I decided kind of late in the game. So Heidi was talking about how her junior year, knew she wanted to play in college. I decided like spring of my senior year, you know what? I don't want to stop. I want to keep rowing. Oh, I was a rower, sorry. And so I decided in the spring, okay, I think I'm gonna row. And then a huge piece for me was financial. So I grew up in Florida. We had a Florida Bright Future Scholarship, which if you get certain grades and you do some volunteer hours and you get a certain ACT, SAT, they'll pay for you to go to a public school. So I needed to align the school choice with a public university in Florida that had a rowing team. And so that kind of narrowed it down a little bit. One team at the University of Central Florida. And then I was also a lightweight rower, and they had a lightweight team. And so that was like, okay, this is starting to match up. I liked that UCF had a good education program. It was far enough away from my family that I could get away, but not too far away that I couldn't drive home if I needed something. And again, it was in the state of Florida, which is what I needed for my finances. And they offered me a scholarship, which was huge. But it was a D1 school. So it was like 25,000 students at the time. Now they're at like 70,000 students. So UCF is a huge school. But I found my like people by rowing. I'm still friends with my roommates from college who I met through rowing. And I also was really into, okay, is this going to be a good fit for me? It's a huge school. I came from a small town like, well, how am I going to fit in here? And they had an honors college, which was fairly new. It was like 3 years old. And they only accept 500 students, freshmen each year, into their honors college. So I was able to row, have the big athlete experience at a D1 school, get a scholarship for rowing. But then I also had the academic side where I had an academic scholarship. I got to be in a smaller feeling college with smaller class sizes, I'm assuming similar to what Heidi experienced at a D1 school. So it kind of goes back to what you said at the beginning of the podcast. Like if you're really looking for what you want, you can find it somewhere. So I got my athletic experience from a huge part of the school, but then I got my education experience from a smaller part of the school.
I think your story is very unique. I mean, I've been in this business for like quite a while now, and you've made a school like work for you. And I feel like a lot of times students will be like, oh, I don't want to go there because it's too big and like that scares me. But you literally made the school work for your like the scholarship side of the college decision-making process, the school side. Like that's very cool that you took the time to figure it all out inside of the school that you wanted to row for.
Yeah, and I was really lucky. I think leaning on my parents was huge. My parents were big at advising me and helping me choose. And like Heidi, I went and stayed with them for a night and checked out practice, morning practice and afternoon practice and weightlifting to kind of see is this gonna be a good fit? Because I think I want to do it, but I'm not sure. So I think leaning on your adult support systems is also huge in making these decisions and helping you find those little pockets that are gonna be great for you.
And Jessica, I have a follow-up question for you because we've talked about, Division 1 and Division 3 at this point and really focused on athletics and academics. What was your experience like? Did you have time management to do any extracurriculars outside? Is there a balance to that? Like, how is it being a Division 1 athlete and how much time do you really truly have to commit to your sport?
That is a really good follow-up question. So I think a compounding factor into that was that I was a lightweight rower, so I had to weigh a certain amount. So I didn't really have a lot of outside time. I was rowing from 5:30 to 8:30 every morning, and then weightlifting every day from like 3 to 5, and then doing my own workouts to make weight after dinner. So I didn't have a lot of time. I wasn't very good at reaching out for support and help either. I thought that I should be able to do it all on my own because I'm independent and I'm 18 and I'm an adult. And I actually ended up like almost failing some of my science courses, which as a science teacher is not great. So I did similar to Will. After a year and a half and starting to fail in organic chemistry, I had to make a decision of am I an athletic student or a student athlete? And I decided I was a student first, and I had to kind of put athletics, I had to say goodbye to my athletic career at that point because I wanted to like graduate for lack of a better word. So that was hard because it did take up so much of my time. But at the time I loved it. I just did not love failing. That was really hard because I was a perfectionist.
No, that's real. I mean, and our student athletes need to hear stories like that because, and that factors into the decision-making process of how much time you want to commit to your sport versus academics versus extracurriculars. And so all of that plays into it, right? We appreciate your honesty and transparency about that. One of our next guests that we have is Tara. And so, Tara, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your sport and your story?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Tara. I played softball at Kutztown University. It was a D2 college or is D2 college. I am in our admissions department here at Laurel Springs. Um, and I kind of I I feel like I'm in between. Like I wasn't Heidi as focused on the academics. I just wanted to play. And so I went with Kutztown because they were providing a scholarship, partial scholarship. Um, I could, I was playing, I was starting, and it was a really competitive school, even though it was D2. It was close to home, only about an hour away, so I was not prepared to go across country, and leave home. My first week in school was a little difficult for me, but I made it with my roommate. Um, and then Kutztown was really the only school that offered me a scholarship. So I did my overnight there. I knew some friends there that I had played with in high school, and they also had a really great education program. So it was kind of a good balance for me. I didn't want to stop playing, but um, also didn't want to go too far away. And so it just really worked out. I I kind of like Will, I wish I had done more research. With Laurel Springs, we have such a great college counseling support. I didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't know like, how do you start? I mean, this was back in 2000. Like, how do you start looking at colleges and talking to coaches and things like that? So I feel like if I had another chance, I would do it a little bit differently, do more research, and also research the coaches and how they coach. I do not respond well to certain types of coaching. And so ultimately, I did end up leaving the team just because of that. It just wasn't a good fit for me. So that was my experience. I don't regret it. I loved it. I finished out my 4 years there and got my education degree.
Yeah, you brought up a good point, like coaching style fit. Like every coach does things differently, and making sure that like your response to getting better as a student athlete matches how that coach coaches. I think that's a really, really important takeaway as far as, you know, another piece to this whole puzzle about is this school the right fit? Like it might be your number one choice on a sheet of paper, and then you go and you meet that coach and you're like, whoa, maybe this isn't such a great fit. And I think that's okay to evaluate and take time to think through because you spend a lot of time with the coach and the team when you're a college student athlete.
Yeah, definitely. It was, we were all 3 seasons. We were fall, we were training in the winter, and then we were, conditioning, and then we were playing in the spring. So it was a lot.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing. Dana, you want to share where you're from, all your things? That'd be awesome.
Sounds good. My name's Dana Kershaw. I teach health and physical education, and I actually went to Westchester University, which is in the same conference as Kutztown University. But I was a sprinter on the track and field team for Westchester. In terms of like how I determined I wanted to be a Division II athlete was my original goal was Division I. And I really tried hard to pursue that, but talking to coaches at the Division I level, it was obvious that I would be more on the practice squad for at least my freshman year, if not my freshman and sophomore year. And I really wanted to start off competing from the get-go. So I knew at that point that I needed to, kind of focus in on Division II or III. When I started looking into some Division III schools, I found that I could be competitive, but I could also be competitive at the Division II level, and then I had to determine what I could afford. And I was working with a coach for a smaller Division III school, and he tried really hard with various grants, academic scholarships, and things like that, but we just couldn't make the finances work. And Westchester was able to give me an athletic scholarship as well as an academic scholarship. So I competed all 4 years for Westchester. In terms of the balancing of academics and athletics, it was a lot. I didn't do a whole lot of other extracurricular activities. I trained twice a day year round because even though in the fall we weren't in season on the track team, the expectation was that we would still be training as a team with the captains. So we would train twice a day in the fall, and then we competed in the winter and in the spring. And then trying to balance that with my academics. I would go to practice, come back, study all evening. I would spend a lot of times on Friday evenings studying if we would be at away at a track meet on a weekend. But I don't have any regrets. It was a great experience and I enjoyed it a lot. It definitely pushed me both academically and athletically.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing your experience.
Yeah.
Question, if you don't mind explaining this just like a little further. So in track's a very unique sport because you have an indoor and an outdoor segment, both
Yes.
competing for national championships. So like indoor is just as important as outdoor. Um, what, like when you were in either indoor or outdoor season, what did your typical day look like? Like a practice day, not a competition day.
So a typical practice day, we would practice 6 a.m.-ish for 1.5 to 2 hours, and that would be like our running practice. I would go to classes, and then we would have another, sometimes it could be more running or lifting in the evening, and then I would go and study for the remainder of the evening. And that was through winter and spring.
So one of the things I was going to bring up through this whole conversation and something to think about as a prospective student athlete looking to get recruited to the different levels and making your decision is like the time commitment behind all of this. And I think it's really important to like point out like when I was working at the Division I level, not when I was playing, but when I was working, like we required our student athletes, they had to lift, they had practice. Depending on who they were, they had X amount of study hall hours that were required. And then they also had required training room hours. Like they had to do rehab. Rehab was not optional. And so when we add all of this up, like per in-state legislation, it's 20 hours a week that you have, like that you're allowed to practice. Um, but then when you add like the academic piece on top of it and everything else, it's like it grows exponentially to like what your requirements are. And I just think it's really important for our student athletes to realize that like every experience is going to be different depending on like which college you go to, which coach you play for, but it's something to ask about when you're going through the recruiting process. Like, what does that typical day look like? Specifically, if you could even ask a teammate versus the coach, they're going to give you like what their individual day looks like, and that's something to consider and think about. Like, there's other things in college besides just athletics. There's the athletics, there's the academics, but then there's this whole social scene in college. There's sororities and fraternities, there's clubs and orgs, there's different ways to get involved. There, your professors are going to push you for internships and different things to like help you exceed in like whatever career is beyond your college time, and just thinking about all of these things that are important to you and factoring your decision-making skills. So really thank you all. But yeah, thank you for sharing your experiences. Just to kind of like refocus the conversation to have like synopsis of what everybody shared. All these things that they were talking about are anecdotal stories, but what it really boils down to is the location, playing size, school size. Do they have the academic major? Competition travel time, schedules. Are you in proximity to your family? Like, how important is it for you to have family watch you play? Um, there's the private versus public school piece on the education side. Playing time. Do you want to play right away? Are you okay sitting a year to be at your dream school? The different academic levels, the different divisions, and then scholarship and finance is probably like the main decision-making factor when it all boils down at the end of the day with what offers you have. So again, really, really appreciate you guys and your time. This was super insightful. I think it'll really help our student athletes here at Laurel Springs in that decision-making process when they're getting recruited, and just things to ask as they're getting recruited too. So thank you for letting them learn from your experiences. LSS students, we are very excited to have you join us for this first episode. There'll be more to come from our Elevate Athletes Laurel Springs Insights podcast. If any of this sparked questions, concerns, thought processes, everybody on this podcast will be willing to talk to you about their own experiences. And then you also have your college athletic counselors to chat with too after this podcast if you have more questions. Your college athletic counselor can also get you in touch with anybody on this podcast that if their story resonated with you or it made you think of like deeper questions, everybody here would be happy to chat with you. So thank you for your time, and we look forward to seeing you or look forward to for you listening next month.